السيدات والسادة الكرام، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. أهلا ومرحبا بكم معنا هنا في الجلسة الثالثة من جلسات مؤتمر الطيران المدني الدولي 2019. حظينا صباح هذا اليوم بافتتاح ناجح ولله الحمد، حضره العديد من وزراء وكبار المسؤولين في الطيران المدني من مختلف دول العالم، كما شرفنا أيضا معالي وزير النقل السعودي، وقمنا أيضا بتوقيع العديد من الاتفاقيات التي من شأنها النهوض وتحسين الطيران المدني في المملكة والعالم. إذن نستكمل هذه المسيرة مع الجلسة الثالثة من جلسات هذا المؤتمر بعنوان المرأة في الطيران المدني، وتأتي هذه الجلسة برعاية الشريك الرسمي أرامكو، وتديرها مشكورة سعادة الأستاذة ريما طياح، المدير الإقليمي للعلاقات الاستراتيجية في الشرق الأوسط وشمال أفريقيا آياتا. لذا رحبوا معي بالأستاذة ريما الطياح.
Good afternoon, everyone. Sorry about the small delay. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. My name is Rima Tayyah. I'm the Regional Director, Advocacy and Strategic Relations for Middle East and North Africa region at IATA, the International Air Transport Association. So I think I can, yeah, okay. So please allow me first to thank again GACA for organizing this huge and significant, important event. I'm extremely honored to be part of this session. I'm extremely, it's really a great opportunity for me to moderate this session with our esteemed speakers, women speakers, each with her fascinating, unique, and inspiring experience in different roles, in different fields, and in different places across our industry. As we've heard it in the morning, our industry is one of the fastest growing industries in the world. It is where the future lies. It connects people, it connects goods, it unites families and friends, and it helps discovering new lands, new cultures. It's really where the future lies. And it provides lots, it has a broad scope, technical, engineering, finance, innovation, a broad scope. All of this has made it an attractive career path for millions. However, and this however is why we are here now. However, 50% of the population, which is women, are yet to receive their fair share of the opportunities that this industry provides. As much as this industry is global, as much as it is diverse, it's dynamic, as much as it is still homogeneous when it comes to gender balance. And we still did not see the gender balance that we want to see, whether in terms of numbers of females who are in the field working in the aviation industry, or in the senior roles that these females play in the industry. And that's a global thing. It's not specific for the region. And it's also not specific for aviation. It also touches upon other industries, but maybe aviation with a more specific highlight. But the rules of the game has never been static. It's always changing, and it will continue to change. We've heard in the morning about what's coming up in the next decade. We've heard that the forecast says that the demand for air transport is going to be changing and growing, and it will double in 20 years. So So therefore, the demand of having a new generation entering this field is absolutely high. And in order to be ready, we need to get our pipeline of talents ready, to get them ready from now. Now, the bright side of the story is being demonstrated today. We are sitting here in a huge event, one of its kind, actually led by a clear vision and ambition to empower women and to talk about the subject and to look at ways of empowering women more and more. Actually, when I looked at the agenda and I saw the many important topics that we will discuss during today and tomorrow, safety, security, airports, passenger experience, and women is actually, this session is actually on the top of the agenda. This brings the message that it's really on top of the agenda, that it really has the importance that it needs. Our discussion today will highlight different aspects of the topic with our esteemed speakers. We're gonna listen from different experiences. We're gonna look into how to get attention of more females to enter into the field, how to empower the females that are already in the field, what are the right policies, what are the right practices in order to achieve this. But before we start this, please allow me to introduce Captain Aisha Al-Hamili. Captain Aisha will give us a keynote speech about the subject, and we will then go into the discussions with our panelists. Captain Aisha is currently the permanent representative of the United Arab Emirates on the Council of Icao. Captain Aisha comes with great wealth of experience in international civil aviation, corporate governance, and Icao Council rules of procedures and practices. Actually, she's known for her strong advocate and passionate about gender balance and about bringing in new talents into the aviation. Captain Aisha is the Arab candidate for the post of the president of the Icao Council, and if she's selected, she will be the first woman in 75 years to hold this position. Captain Aisha, please, the floor is yours.
Assalamu alaikum. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. First, it's an honor and a pleasure to stand here before you. This event reaffirms that change is happening, and the future is bright for our next generation of aviation professionals. I would like to congratulate the Kingdom of Saudi for all the leap steps that are taking towards women empowerment, which is evident in the various high-level appointments in the government, and especially in the aviation sector. I would like to also congratulate GACA on its unprecedented achievement that contributed to the development of the air transport industry, locally, regionally, and internationally. The achievement comes at a variety of levels, including safety and aviation security, the developments of airports, and improvements of traveler experience, and most of all, empowering women to play a vital role in the aviation industry. This step has been applauded by Icao. The Icao also thanked GACA for the step taken in recruiting young Saudi women in vital sector roles, some vital sectors, stressing that this initiative goes in line with the Icao strategy for equal empowerment. I would also like to congratulate my Saudi sisters for the remarkable support of their government. 2018 has been a remarkable and a landmark year for women in Saudi Arabia, from getting behind the steering wheels to being driving force in the prominent international governmental and business roles. Aviation is a unique sector. The number of women at the professional and executive levels show a big gap. The gap can only be addressed if there is a global and political will to take an active step to shrink it. According to a recent study, about 3% of pilots are women. That's about 4,000 out of 130,000 pilots worldwide. And it's nearly 50 years since the first woman became a commercial pilot, but the numbers are still heavily, very, very low. Whether it's in the boardrooms, executive levels, or the cockpit, The aviation industry lags behind on the issue of gender and diversity. Only 3% of airline chief executives are women, and this is according to the 2017 survey by the industry journal Airline Business for the top 100 biggest carriers by revenue. To understand this gap also, we need to understand this is inherited and it is historical. Unfortunately, it starts by educating our girls, to hiring, to promotion, and to retaining the aviation professionals. I would like to just share my experience in aviation as a pilot and being where I am. There are 4 factors contributing to where I am. The first factor, my family, which were very supportive, but still I had to struggle to convince them to sell my passion for them. Factor number 2, society. The society did not accept me back then to be a pilot because it was just simply not acceptable. The 4th factor, it was institutional and organization, because everywhere I applied, I was rejected. It is the unsaid thing that I'm a woman, but it was the obvious. And the last but not least, the political empowerment. I was privileged that I was supported by the First Lady and by the founder, Father Sheikh Zayed, and also by the Minister of Education. However, if there is no link between the 4 factors, it is very difficult for women to pursue their dreams and careers, especially in aviation. In April 2018, the United Arab Emirates Cabinet endorsed a bill for the first legislation that ensures equal pay for men and women. And the UAE is the first country in the region to establish a UAE Gender Balance Council in 2015, which is dedicated to reduce the gender gap and enhancing UAE's global ranking in regards to gender balance agenda. In 2012, the UAE became the first country in the Arab region to introduce a mandatory female presence in boardrooms. Today, the participation of Emirati women is record-breaking. The UAE has 9 female ministers out of 32 ministers. And recently, during the Global Government Summit, His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid, our Prime Minister and the Governor of Dubai, announced that the next formation and the composition of the cabinet will have 50% females. 56% of the UAE graduates are from the science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And this gives us a hope for the next generation of aviation professionals. We have many initiatives in women in aviation, both on the UAE level and globally. Ladies and gentlemen, I wish my story was every woman's story, but the truth is the glass ceiling for women in aviation has not been shattered. This needs to change because the aviation landscape is changing. The global aviation industry is warning of a shortage of pilots and aviation professionals across the sector. As demand for air travel increases, and recruitment for women could go a long way to solving this problem. At Icao, we continuously work together to meet the challenges of the future and pave the way for the next generation of aviation professionals to work in an environment where sustainability, diversity, and equality will be the goals of the past. We are constantly reminded that the development of civil aviation industry can only be realized when all human rights, including women's rights, are protected, respected, and fulfilled. In 2016, and this is for the first time, Icao Assembly adopted a resolution, A3930, which is Icao Gender Equity Program, promoting the participation of women in the global aviation sector. This resolution urges states, regional, and international aviation organizations and the international aviation industry to demonstrate strong, determined leadership and commitment to advance women's rights. We need to take the necessary measures to strengthen gender equity by supporting policies as well as establishment and improvements of programs and projects to advance women's careers in aviation. Now, here's the reality that we are going to face, or we are facing. The next generation of aviation professionals are not the same professionals that we have today, and they are not the same people that we have bred before. The issue we faced yesterday won't be the same. The new generation have different mindsets. They have more access to information. They are raised differently. They're raised to achieve, innovate, create, and be different. And they strike the life and work balance. They are go-getters and high achievements. You are not expecting them to wait in a cubicle for promotions or higher ranking. Don't expect them to wait for accumulating flying hours to be promoted. They want it fast, they want it now, and they want it to be based on performance. Our way of doing business will have to change. Active steps are necessary from all of us to change the current trends of gender bias and inequality. It is time for change in thinking and being. It is time to lay the foundation for our daughters and sisters and the next generation of aviation professionals, so that one day gender parity and the movements of women's rights become part of our history. I strongly believe that we have the power to make the change. I look at this powerful room here, and it gives me faith that the future is here, and there's a bright future for our daughters and for the women in the future. One more time, I would like to thank the government of Saudi for hosting this event, and I wish you all the success in your deliberations and discussions. Thank you.
Thank you, Captain Aisha. Thank you. I think you've already touched upon many of the main topics on the issue, which we're going to elaborate a bit on them with our speakers. Let me start with Ms. Mercy Awori. Ms. Mercy Awori is the permanent representative to Icao of Kenya and Eastern region. Ms. Awori serves as the African Group and Forum Coordinator and the Chairperson of the Air Transport Committee of the Council since 2016. And she currently sits as the Bureau Member of the AFCAC, the African Aviation Commission. Ms. Awori, so giving this background as the beginning, what do you see the perspective of women in aviation in Kenya and in Africa continent in general?
You snuck in when I wasn't looking.
Works.
I was just saying I haven't.
It's okay?
Yeah, it works.
Thank you.
Can you hear us?
Thank you very much, Reem. And first of all, I also want to thank the government of Saudi Arabia for hosting us. And it's really an honor to me to be among these eminent women. I represent 14 African countries in the Eastern region, and I sit as the chair of the Human Resource Committee. So the issue of gender parity is something which is very close to my heart. Looking at the survey which you have mentioned, and I'm going back to the global and regional survey for the 20-year focus that was conducted by Icao in 2013, and looking at the findings, there was the issue of doubling of traffic in 15 years from 1977, and that the trend would continue up to 2030. So just looking at those numbers, we realize that the shortage is going to be global, and therefore the opportunities are immense for both men and women. Coming to Kenya, I look at our industry as a vibrant industry because our general aviation, and this includes the domestic and the non-scheduled operations, we have about 1,517 registered aircraft. So you can imagine the number of activities, and therefore there's really no shortage of aviation activities in Kenya. But having said that, I still look at the specific sectors, like for instance, in the CAA, a lot has been done, but there still remains a lot to be done. For instance, I'm looking at the flight safety. In flight safety, we have 65% of the inspectors are female, which is very good. But in airworthiness, we still have about maybe 26%. So there is room for improvement. And the opportunities are actually there. The only thing that women require is access and creating an environment that will be supportive of women. For instance, in Kenya Airways, we have 32 engineers. And when you hear their story, they say that at the beginning, they didn't even have toilets for the engineers because they had not anticipated that that was a business that women would go into. So really, a lot has changed, and a lot is changing, but I believe that there is a lot that can still be done. Sitting as the chair of the Human Resource Committee at Icao, we look at the applications. We hardly get female applicants applying for these positions. And that, again, is something that women need to actually come out and be bold about some of these positions. And that's why some of us are very excited about Captain Aisha's presidency. Being a woman, coming out in 75 years, I think that is commendable. So really, I believe that the opportunities are there for both men and women. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Awori. Actually, you've mentioned two important things. That one, the opportunities are there, but we need to have these females get their interest to get into the field. And another thing that I want to elaborate on is also what you've mentioned about securing the environment. And I wish to move to Haifa Hamiduddin on this. Haifa is the Transformation Project Manager at Saudi Air Navigation Services. Haifa, is part of her job is implementing operational transformation projects and leading overall change management across the organization. She has 14 years of experience in the field of project management, operations management, and accounting. And the reason why I come to you is that we know that in Saudi Air Navigation Services, you're working on the environment in order to make it more able to secure, empowerment of females. And we've heard it just recently that the first female air traffic controller now is in Saudi Arabia. So can you please elaborate a bit on this experience?
Of course. Thank you, Rima. And on behalf of Saudi Air Navigation Services, I want to thank GACA really for giving us this opportunity to be part of this panel discussion. I'm very happy to represent SANS as a vehicle in women empowerment in the aviation industry. And, SANS was recently corporatized, and I joined in as a transformation manager really to enable and to support in the implementation of the right changes to enable our business to perform at its optimum. And to kind of give you a backstory into how we reached to our ATCOs. I've been in the region for 9 years, and I have seen tremendous changes in general, and maybe in women in specific, and this really can be attributed to Vision 2030. It really was key in the country's development and transformation, and it really did open a lot of opportunities for female across the kingdom, and I mean, we're here talking about aviation, but across the kingdom now, females more than ever have opportunities and a clear path really to actively participate in all areas of the economy. And SANS successfully jumped on that bandwagon in attracting females in not only the administration roles, but also in the operation. And if we're looking at it, in a little over 1 year, SANS was able to grow their female workforce from 0 to 38 females. And that's huge for an organization that maybe did not have any female presence to now go from 0 to 38 females. And those 38 females, actually, you'll see them across the organization. So you'll see them in strategy, change management, engineering, IT. You'll see them in various areas in HR, in development, in training, and in recruitment. And what's truly amazing is that all of our females are truly spread, as I mentioned, across the organization. However, 11 of those females are at the core of our business as air traffic controllers. And we are expecting 15 more to be joining us by the end of this year, really bringing the total to 26 female air traffic controllers, which is the first time in Saudi Arabia, and it is a historical moment. If you actually think about it, in a couple of weeks, in a few weeks from now, our pilots flying over the Saudi airspace will actually hear a Saudi female air traffic controller on the other end, which is a huge milestone not only for SANS but really for the kingdom as a whole. You know, it's a very inspiring moment for other females that are maybe hoping to get into the industry, or other even women that maybe were interested but didn't know that they had an opportunity, you know. And so if we look at that in terms of numbers, what we're saying is we will in 2019 have 4% of our air traffic controllers be represented by females, right? Which might sound like, and their female air traffic controllers are only represented, 16% are only represented by female air traffic controllers. So yes, we are making slow progress, but it is a step in the right direction. And going back to your question, we do consider that we have had a successful journey in really having, you know, females come into our organization. And I would like to highlight 3 main factors, I believe, that were the reason behind this success. And first, truly, is the government and the leadership's support in welcoming females into the aviation industry. And actually, with their support in general, females, as I mentioned, now more than ever have opportunities, whether in aviation or not in aviation. And second is, you know, we were in a very fortunate position in SANS to really establish our strategy from scratch. And with that, we were able to draw a future state to really see what we want to focus on. And one of our key focus areas were our people, so the people, the employees of SANS. And tremendous efforts were really put in place in 2018 to make sure that SANS as a workplace was competitive, attractive, and welcoming to both genders, males and females. You know, and I know, Mercy, you kind of spoke about it. We made sure that we have the right facilities in place to accommodate both males and females. We made sure that we put the right policies in place to protect the rights of both males and females. Do we have a healthy environment for our female workers as well as our male workers? We actively recruited females. You know, and the list really goes on and on. And last and certainly not least, and I'd like to highlight this because it's a very important fact, it's a very important point and a very important fact, that it truly is the appetite of the women in Saudi Arabia and their desire for a career for whatever the reason may be. You know, it could be to support their families, or it could be because they want self-fulfillment. So if it wasn't for their passion and for their desire to actively participate in the economy, then we wouldn't be here today. And, you know, I know we kind of mentioned this, we have a very young population in Saudi Arabia. 60% of our population is young. So it truly is in our interest to invest in those capabilities. And today more than ever, you see the females in all the different sectors, and you know, it's not by chance.
Okay, good. So,
Thank you.
So let's continue in the same, you know, almost the same area, the technical. And we have our next panelist, Shaima Ben Milord. Shaima is the Chief Operating Officer at Airside Safety Operations International. Shaima holds a degree in Process Engineering and a master's degree in Technological Project Management. She has 10 years of experience in managing international projects specialized in aviation field. And she's an ambassador for diversity, and she promotes and she's an advocate for promoting aviation engineering studies and social inclusion. This is very important subject because we always say that, you know, sometimes the technical field is not very appealing to females. It's the other areas. So please, let's start first with Shaima about your perspective working in an international organization. What is your perspective on the role of women so far in international organizations?
Thank you, Rima, and I would like to take a moment to thank as well GACA for inviting me for this panel. I think it's a great opportunity for me to be part of this. I would like to mention at the beginning, before to talk about women in aviation in general, being involved in association, I think it's very important at a very early age to develop our soft skills and personality, because we talk a lot about technical requirement, but it comes as well with a lot of soft skills to be part of all this challenge. So being involved, doing volunteering, this is really important. Then coming to Women International Organizations, so for example, I'm serving myself on the board of director of Women in Aerospace, the chapter of Quebec. And the mission of this organization is to facilitate the access of the information of the diversity of the jobs in aviation. So it's not anymore about pilots and mechanical engineers. And I'm the example of this. So I'm chemical engineers, and I didn't work necessarily in very technical at the beginning in aviation, but with other expertise and other experience it brings to this. So these organizations will create opportunities, panels, events, workshops to really educate, inform about what can be done, but also serve as models. It's very important for some girls, even though they can be really skilled, to just see some other models having success and good careers in aviation. So they just need to see this and do the first step. After the first step, I think that women can do miracle in anything, to be honest, but for sure that for women in aviation specifically, we still have this challenge. And for sure, I still believe that these organizations need also the support of the companies and the private companies, because all the networking needs to have all this together, right? So universities as well, so to be able to put together students and professional in the market explaining what type of job I'm doing, what looks like to be a head of operation, for example. And this needs to be also part of the culture of companies, not only the organization or the association created. I'm really happy that my company is really pushing me and giving me enough flexibility as well to be part of all this. And for example, last month we have been organizing a mentoring session with students, with ACI, with Icao. So I'm based in Montreal, and even though it's North America, sorry, we still see there's a lot of place to help girls leading in this field. So I think that the role of organization is really important to serve as a model, to give examples, to help a little bit building the self-confidence as well, to be able to be ready and face the challenge and the career in aviation in general.
Hello? Yeah, you're right, and you know, as global as an industry as global as aviation, I think global organizations plays a vital role. And I'm gonna pick on what you've said, the first step. I think we have now Maha Al-Yemni. First step is what she took, and she opened the way for others females to join. Maha Al-Yemni is the aviation risk management specialist at the General Authority of Civil Aviation, GACA, at Saudi Arabia. If you're ready, I'm gonna mention too many first now. Maha is the first female who joined GACA. Maha is the first female who is qualified at with the safety management for civil aviation, is the first Saudi female acting as the director. She took the position of Director Aviation Licensing and Certification in 2016. And she also was the first one to issue first sport pilot license and the first ground handling work permit in the kingdom. So Maha, your journey is apparently very inspiring, and apparently aviation was on your agenda since the beginning. So please let us know, walk us through your journey and let us know your perspective about it.
Thank you, Ms. Rima. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Let me just first take a moment to thank His Royal Highness, the custodian of the two holy mosques, King Salman bin Abdulaziz, for his high patronage of today's summit. I would also like to extend my thanks to the General Authority of Civil Aviation for giving me the trust to represent Saudi female workers in the authority in this panel. Dear guests, good afternoon and welcome again to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. I'm honored to be here today with you and share my experience in working for the legislator of civil aviation in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. To answer your question, Ms. Rima, I think I was ready to join the market in the right time, the time where many efforts were made to empower women and get them involved with the aviation sector and help them pursue rewarding careers associated with this field. My beginnings were hard, like any other beginning, but with the infinite support of everybody around me and with the country's belief of women's abilities, my journey went more smooth. When I got hired, the news went viral. It was another success for women empowerment in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and this time in the sector of aviation. In 2015, we were a group of 5 females in the authority. A little later, the number doubled, and then it tripled. And today we have over 100 female employees in the authority, working every day with the goal of keeping air transport safer, more secure, and more efficient. So I started from there, and here we are now.
Thank you. Such an inspiring journey. So I would like to come back to Captain Aisha. Captain Aisha, we've talked a lot about many of the speakers mentioned about policies, about have the right plan in order to empower women. Empowering women is not only about giving the position, it's about educating, about preparation, capacity building. So what do you think? How could we achieve this?
First, there are responsibilities that starts from, I would say, the national levels, to understand what are their needs and compare to the global level. And from there, it has to be a global, or it has to be a national strategy in order to build the education system to match the needs of the country's goals. And I want to just talk about the United Arab Emirates. When, for example, now we have, because of all these innovations and because of all the technologies, the government established the Ministry of Artificial Intelligence. Artificial intelligence is part of our education. And this is a vision of the government, that artificial intelligence and the innovation is going to be part of our next generations of professionals, our children and our future. So you start with that and then see how that feeds into your national plans, and how can you develop basically your national vision. Now, when it comes on the global level, this is another thing that we are looking at now. So when we look at the needs of the next generation of aviation professionals, first we need to look at the forecast of what does the aviation needs. Yes, we need more pilots. Yes, we need more air traffic controllers. Yes, we need more engineers. However, what kind of professionals we need? Are we going to train them the same way that we used to train them? And based on these forecasts, this is where the global plans come and say, okay, this is the forecast. Now, these are the plans to prepare our next generation of aviation professionals. Now, here is for the national authorities to make sure that whatever education they put in place is in line with these national plans. So it is a full ecosystem, but it has to start from up and understanding the future, at the same time putting policies, procedures, and systems in place to prepare our next generation of aviation professionals. And at the end, when we talk about this, it's to maintain a safe and secure and sustainable aviation system. We don't want to train ill-equipped children or ill-equipped professionals for an industry that does not look the same in probably 5 or even 10 years.
Okay. So, and I would like to link this also with Ms. Awori about the role of females who are already leading the way now and have these impactful positions in the industry. I would like to link it with how important is coaching and mentoring, how to show the right path in front of a new generation. So what is your advice to someone who's newly getting into the field from a mentoring and coaching perspective?
Thank you, Rima. I think I want to maybe pick up from what Captain Aisha has mentioned on the way we are supposed to be looking at the international and the national level, and maybe looking at Africa, where aviation has been seen as a field of the elite. And of course, it's also very expensive to train a pilot or to train aircraft maintenance engineers, etc. So there is the role that governments must play. Looking at an industry such as aviation, which is very critical, transport being one of the very critical pillars of any development of any economy, it's important that governments step in and find ways in which they can also promote this, either by way, and I can give you an example. For instance, in Kenya, we, the Civil Aviation Authority, is partnering with a club, a small club as part of their corporate social responsibility. And in this club, they bring in young people and try and generate interest in aviation. And at the same time, they have created like a fund where you can sponsor students who have the aptitude, but probably they do not have the resources to enter into that field. So I think looking at a way in which we can generate that pool, it will be very important for governments to look into that detail. Now, coming to the issue of mentorship, I think mentorship is very important and it cuts across the board. The mentors for women should be both male and female. For instance, when I joined the industry, my mentor was my CEO at the time. I was a graduate just coming in from the university, and he put me there to take notes whenever they had all these big meetings. And we learned to see how people work. You learn to see how the men work, you learn to see how the women work. So I think mentorship is very, very important. And for us who are in these privileged positions, I don't think we take it for granted. Like for me right now, we are mobilizing women in Kenya to form an association because we want them to have a platform where they can get assistance. So they are creating an association so that they can have all the women in, and then they can begin to network. Because it is only through networks that probably they broaden their horizons and they are able to also prime up for the opportunities that would come in. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Haifa, I would like to come back to you about, we heard in the morning about the growth in the aviation sector in Saudi Arabia, the big numbers of passengers, the airports. It's a very dynamic sector and it's in its, booming phases. So what do you think the role of women in building sustainable capacity? Because it's important with the growth of the aviation to have hand in hand prepared generation to keep up with this growth. What do you think the role of women in sustainable capacity?
Absolutely, I agree with you. And I believe honestly that women have proven that they can have any role that is put forward. Now, if we're talking about the aviation industry specifically, that has been a bit of a challenge and a more difficult journey because it has been closed off for some time. The women have been closed off from the industry. It has been a male-dominated industry for decades now. So this is truly where it becomes the role of the organization to truly open up and communicate equal opportunities for both men and for women. Truly the organizations or the companies should go out and change this perception that the aviation industry is a male-dominated industry. They should change the perception that the aviation industry is welcoming to females as well. And I should say this is not an issue here in Saudi Arabia. This is actually a global issue. And I was recently at an ATM conference in Madrid, and I attended a panel about how to attract and retain women and millennials in ATM. And the discussion was centered around the need for the aviation industry to support females pursuing their careers in aviation, as well as encourage them to take leadership roles. So yes, the leaders should identify good potentials or high potentials of the different capabilities, but women should also have equal opportunities and unbiased consideration when it comes to those opportunities that are out there in the aviation industry. Now, going back to specifically maybe what we have done, and I did discuss this earlier, of the different things that we consider ourselves successful at SANS to really attract females, because this is really, as you mentioned, how you sustain, the presence of females in the aviation industry. And, communication is key, really, in exposing the industry to females. We made sure that our communication is targeted to both men and to women, whereas traditionally it was targeted towards men. And another thing that we did is, as I said, we made sure that we have the right environment in place. Even when we were recruiting our females, we made sure that the communication is saying that we are actively looking for females to be joining us. Another thing is we were actually very fortunate to take advantage of the government scholarship program, وظيفتك بعثتك, and through that program, we hired 22 females who will be joining us in the next 3 to 4 years once they graduate. So we already hired them last year, and those females went out and they are studying different majors, technical and non-technical, so whether it's in our core business as ATCOs or support functions, and those females are going to be coming in the next 3 to 5 years. So this is really how, I mean, females are already going into the field, right? They are already, whether they're still studying or they're ready to join the industry now. So it really is the role of the organization to open up and welcome them in order for them to keep that presence of the females in the aviation industry.
Thank you. And the most important thing as well is not to have it, as you said, not to have it based on individuals, to have it institutionalized. So it's a clear plan, it's a clear action plan.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Haifa. I'd like to come back also to Shaima about the technical skills. So, you know, with your background on technical, can you please share with us the key technical requirements for skilled aviation staff? Because, you know, aviation is open with different fields, and we want to attract more females also into this technical field. So what are the requirements for the future growth?
Sure. I asked myself this question before, when I joined aviation, because I said, chemical engineer girl, why they will hire me, you know? I have no idea. But then, whenever I joined, I understood that it's not only about knowing, you know, the mechanical things or the regulation necessarily, but it's much more than this. And this is the beauty of aviation. I think we fall in love with it.
Yeah.
It's true. It's come with values. It's come with passion for aviation. And for sure, there are some technical requirements, in my point of view, for sure, have a minimum of curiosity. This is really important because in aviation, I believe that we cannot work independently or in silo. For example, in my job, I need to take care of operation, I need to communicate with ground handling, and I cannot you know, be in my box and don't see what others are doing. To be able to establish standard operating procedure, to do all this, to ensure safety, to enhance the safety culture, we need to understand the minimum of others, what they are doing, other departments, what they are doing. And you cannot have degrees in everything, right? So you need to be resourceful, you need to have a minimum of curiosity, and this comes with communication. If we don't communicate, it's already a challenge. So communication is really important in aviation, and it's also coming with sharing the data. So data sharing, the transparency of data is really important. I had the big chance and the opportunity to implement operation with the Airside Safety Operation International in Jeddah and Riyadh, private aviation. And we were able in a very short period to enhance safety awareness and increase the voluntary reporting, so incident and safety reporting, by 5%, just because we were sharing the information. So people were really feeling involved. And this is really important to build expertise from the bottom up. So people need to feel that any job is really important for safety, regardless of the level of it, regardless of the high level of decision maker we are. It comes from this, and this is really important. So communication is first, curiosity, being resourceful, and being a team player for sure, because leadership is really important in aviation. As I said, it's part of a big market. It's trending, it's a lot of innovation. There's, as Captain Aisha mentioned, artificial intelligence. We're talking about smart airports. So we can't do this anymore as a classic way of doing it. So we need to be really curious, very, very creative, innovative, and think also about what's going on around us and be part of the market. So it's not only about really doing our little job and then we go back home and it's fine. So to be able to have safe aviation, but at the same time participating in growing the economy, I think it's really important to have all this collaboration, soft skills, let's say. I believe really in soft skill with the technical requirements for aviation.
Yeah, and it's, as we said, it's a changing aviation, so the way we approach it should be also changing and dynamic. So, Maha, so you opened the door, as we said. So, in terms of this changing the way. So what attracted you before maybe will not attract the new generation later on. It's always different. You need to deal with each generation in different ways. So from your perspective, you've opened the door. What other opportunities do you think there are still in the market for females?
Well, that's a good question, Ms. Rima. With the Kingdom's 2030 vision for women empowerment, the sector of civil aviation became full of opportunities for ladies. And I would like to mention here that the aviation industry is one of perfect industries, and there are few of them in the world where perfect industry, that means almost every specialization is welcomed and needed. In the General Authority of Civil Aviation, our mission is to adopt the necessary rules, regulations, and procedures to ensure safety and security of air transport. It is our mission also to develop air transport through construction, management, operation of airports, and air navigation infrastructure in accordance to the advanced systems and the international standards. It is also our mission to support the regional and the international cooperation and to participate effectively in the decision-making in the world of aviation. And last but not least, our mission is to develop our financial resources, investment opportunities, and to optimize the human capital that we have. And to achieve this mission, we need employees from different backgrounds, from those with aviation technical backgrounds like pilots, air traffic controllers, and flight dispatchers, working as safety inspectors, security inspectors, investigators, examiners, and to those with the professionals with background in medical field, and also with legal expertise and diplomatic studies. We won't be able to achieve our mission without our engineers, programmers, translators, and designers, also experts in marketing, finance, investment, public relations, and human resources, and the list goes on. And the General Authority of Civil Aviation have female workers in all of these specializations I just mentioned. And by knowing the ABCs of their specialization, they mastered the Alpha Bravo Charlies. And there is a growing awareness, I see it, of women's essential contribution to the success of the world of aviation, and this goes worldwide. And here at the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, I see the kingdom went through different stages of evolutionary transitions, and we reached a point of maturity that requires sustainability. And let's look back 20 years ago. The competitive advantage for a female was just being a female with interest in aviation and some technical knowledge, of course. That was good enough for her to land a job in the sector of aviation. But in today's market, it's different, and we are investing in the human capital that we are to create a more stable and sustainable competitive advantage. And I would like to mention here that the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is training a whole new generation of female aviation professionals to ensure the future of aviation in Saudi Arabia. And the game has changed, and women were given the trust and the empowerment to contribute in the building blocks that builds the future of aviation. And one thing more I would like to mention here, that the Authority of Civil Aviation, in the Authority of Civil Aviation, the workers with the same educational background and the same work experience get the same paycheck despite the gender. And Ms. Rima, you asked me about the opportunities for ladies in the sector, and my answer is, what is not an opportunity after the 2030 vision? And if it's not in aviation sector, where else would it be? The boarding pass for this voyage in the world of aviation is the woman's passion, determination, and affection. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So with a pressure of time, just to highlight the main things that, acknowledging that there is a gap, there is an issue is one step ahead, but putting forward a clear plan, a clear way forward is the most important thing. I would like to finish the session with Captain Aisha highlighting some of the key points. What is, in your perspective, the way forward in order to tackle these issues that we've discussed?
I'm a believer that if you cannot measure it, you cannot manage it. I believe that you have a vision, and then you make a plan. According to the plan, you put your policies to empower women, to retain them, to encourage the next generation of not only females, but also male, because, you know, we have our children in the pipeline. And then we put these policies in place and track the implementation and check the numbers. And the numbers needs to enhance, and the numbers need to match our targets. And if we cannot do this, then all what we are doing here is personal and wishful thinking. So I am hoping, and I am really hopeful, that one day when my daughter wants to come into anything, or she wants to come to do anything, it does not become about I'm a female. It becomes about I'm qualified, and she will be in a society where women and men have the same opportunities. But also men need to play a very great role, because unfortunately it's a male club or men club. I mean, even now when we see in all our conferences, it's male dominated, very few female, and this needs to also change. And this needs to also be tracked down, is the number of participation, number of increase of women. So I am hoping that very soon, before 20, I would say 25, that at least we have a very significant increase of number of women in the civil aviation, across the world, of course.
Of course, of course. Thank you so much. Please give a warm round of applause for our esteemed speakers. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you indeed. إذا نشكر رئيسة الجلسة والمتحدثين والمتحدثات عفوا. والآن ننتقل بكم مباشرة للجلسة الرابعة بعنوان الطائرات بدون طيار، الدرونز، سلامة الحركة الجوية منخفضة الارتفاع وتكاملها مع الطيران العام. وتأتي هذه الجلسة برعاية الشريك اللاتيني العربية للإعلانات الخارجية. سينضم إلينا رئيس الجلسة والمتحدثين إلى المنصة بعد أن يتم إعدادها خلال دقيقة.
No,
إذا كما ذكرنا لكم يا سيدات والسادة الكرام، نحن على موعد الآن مع الجلسة الرابعة بعنوان الطائرات بدون طيار، الدرونز، سلامة الحركة الجوية منخفضة الارتفاع وتكاملها مع الطيران العام. وهذه الجلسة تأتي برعاية الشريك البلاتيني العربية للإعلانات الخارجية. ويدير هذه الجلسة مشكورا كين ساول، Assistant Director Safety IATA. Mr. Sewell, the floor is yours.
shukran. Assalamu alaikum and good afternoon. Quick introduction. My name is Ken Sewell. I'm the Assistant Director Safety with the International Air Transport Association. My remit, I cover the Gulf and the Near East, and I'm based in Abu Dhabi in the UAE. I'd just like to take a moment very briefly and thank His Excellency and the General Authority for Civil Aviation here in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia for the opportunity and the invitation to participate in the panel discussion and the summit. It's my third time here at the Ritz-Carlton by the authority. It's a fantastic venue, and it's each time's been a memorable event. So thank you very much again. Our subject today is certainly a hot topic. It's not a new topic. It's been around for quite some time now. There's been a lot of advancements have been made with regards to drones or UAS, unmanned aircraft systems, and the safety of low altitude operations and integration with civil aviation. Just to give a bit of scope or size and scale of the technology, it's not something that's coming. It's not an emerging subject. It's here now. For some numbers against that within the US, I believe we've got something like 300,000 aircraft registrations, and most recently the numbers are looking at about 1.3 million registered drones operating. And from one of the UTM solution providers, they manage about 100,000 UAS movements per day. So it's certainly here already. And as we see the numbers of these systems increasing exponentially around the world for both recreational and commercial operations, we're seeing civil aviation authorities now working on unmanned traffic management or UTM solutions to see the safe and effective integration of these systems or multiple systems within the airspace. So today we're going to touch on the safety-related aspects with regards to the integration of these systems within the airspace environment. We're going to look at the current existing UTM or UAS traffic management solutions that are currently available, and also what the future model may look like. We'll have a touch on the regulatory framework and environment for the control of these systems within the airspace unit. And we'll also have an opportunity to touch on the role of the Regional Safety Oversight Organisation, or the RSOO, recently established in the MENA region here as well, and how that can contribute to consistent application and integration of these systems. We're extremely fortunate to have a wealth of knowledge available on our panel today, and I'd like to commence with introducing Dr. Sami Al-Shusari. I hope I got it right this time. Director General, Safety and Risk Department with the General Authority for Civil Aviation here in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. I'd like to invite Dr. Sami onto the stage. He's going to open with a keynote speech on the subject for us. So please welcome Dr. Sami Al-Shusari. Dr. Sami.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Thank you, Ken. Your Excellencies, respected audience, thank you for being here at this time. It's always tough to give a speech after lunch, especially this late. However, I promise I'll make it short and sweet, inshallah. Through its current strategy, the General Authority of Civil Aviation of Saudi Arabia, GACA, plays an important role in achieving the goals of Saudi Vision 2030. Goals such as national economic growth, privatization, transparency, improvement of service provided to nationals and visitors to the kingdom, and building a logistic hub that connects the three continents. The civil aviation sector is growing rapidly in Saudi Arabia, and therefore, a high level of safety must be maintained to ensure the continuous growth. This level of safety must be in compliance with Icao standards and recommended practices. Ken just mentioned probably the Regional Safety Oversight Organization, the RSO, for the Middle East and North Africa, MENA RSO. I will elaborate briefly about this organization. Member states of the steering committee have chosen the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia as the host for this new organization. The initiative of hosting this important safety oversight organization comes in line with achieving the goals of 2030 vision. There are several reasons that make Saudi Arabia the perfect location for this regional organization. To mention some, first, the kingdom's unique geographical location. which His Excellency the Minister just elaborated about that. Second, the Kingdom's vast area of more than 2,250,000 square kilometers with vast airspace. Third, there are currently 27 airports in Saudi Arabia, and more will be built in the near future. Fourth, Saudi has the largest internal air transport market in the region. Fifth, the location of the two holy mosques in Mecca and Medina, and the devoted attention from the Saudi government, which ensures that the two holy mosques and their visitors are receiving the best possible services. Sixth, the dedication of GACA to comply with international safety guidelines. Moreover, the in-kind contributions that the Saudi government has been providing to help the aviation community around the world. Also, that Saudi Arabia has been an effective member of many international organizations, such as Icao, ACI, IATA, Kanzo, and many more. The MENA RSOO Steering Committee has been formed, and the president of GACA has been nominated during the first meeting to chair the steering committee. The organization is located in a convenient and secure location at King Khalid International Airport here in Riyadh. The steering committee will sign official documents early next month. As an aviation safety professional, I am looking forward to the benefits that this organization will bring to the whole region. As for the current session, session 4, regarding the drones, UTM, and the advancement of the industry in this area, I would like to share some statistics with you. GACA has recently, around probably mid-January 2019, opened the online drone registration through its official website. Since then, GACA has received 1,553 successful applications for recreational use and 153 successful applications for commercial use. There are other applications in the pipeline, however, still not completed by applicants, some missing documents and other stuff. Also, GACA so far issued 95 certificates for recreational use and 5 commercial use. There are currently around 100 registered drones in the kingdom. So you can see there is a long way ahead of us in GACA. GACA also received 1,041 successful applications for operator permits, recreational, and 278 applications for operator permits, commercial. The number of operators permits already issued is 342 operators permits for recreational and 3 operator permits for commercial. As you may know, there are several stakeholders involved in this system. GACA is just one of them. Currently, the average time is not accurate. However, it does take a long time to receive an application, to receive an approval for the application. For applications to be complete, all involved stakeholders must process and approve the application. Obviously, there is plenty of room for improvement. I hope this session can help by shedding some light on this area to learn from other states around the world. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Sami, for your keynote speech. It's interesting to hear, actually, and the successes, and congratulations again, the Kingdom on hosting and supporting the establishment of the MENA Regional Safety Oversight Organisation, so congratulations on that front. So I'd like to move and introduce our panellists. We'll start with a brief opening statement from each of them. I'll turn to the middle to start with Ben Marcus, co-founder and chairman of AirMap. AirMap is a software solution, software company providing a UTM solution for the drones industry. A little bit of background on Ben. He was previously the CEO and founder of Jet Aviva, who was the world's leading broker of business jets. And before that, he was a flight test engineer with Eclipse Aviation, the maker of the Eclipse 500 VLJ, or very light jet. So, Ben, I'm sorry, I'll turn to you and just ask you to give us your perspective on software solutions for UTM. Ben.
Hello. Okay. Thank you, Ken, for the introduction, and thanks to the General Authority of Civil Aviation for the very warm invitation and hospitality here. It's truly a distinct honor to be back in the kingdom with all of you. So I think we're all here today because we can all appreciate the vast potential that aviation has to offer society. And by way of background on AirMap, our mission is to help make flight a part of everyday life by providing the technologies to safely integrate unmanned aircraft into the airspace. We have shareholders including Microsoft, Airbus, Honeywell, and a number of other global industrial conglomerates and technology companies who are aligned and supporting that mission as we help to integrate drones into the airspace. So why is it exactly that there needs to be a new set of software solutions we call unmanned aircraft traffic management? Well, the existing system for air traffic management needs support because it cannot address the scale of operations nor the complexity of operations that unmanned aircraft introduce. As Ken mentioned, AirMap is supporting more than 100,000 unmanned aircraft flights each day. That's about the same number as manned aircraft fly each day in the world. And we're only getting started. Drones today are already providing all kinds of incredible value for people, whether they be delivering critical supplies like blood and vaccines, inspecting industrial infrastructure like pipelines, power lines, roads, bridges, and so forth, or serving public safety tasks like police and fire. But before long, people will be able to fly to work, for example, on giant drones or air taxis. And there will be all kinds of new applications that are going to see massive scale that we can't even imagine yet. And so we need a solution to address that. The existing manual process of air traffic control cannot handle it. We need more automation. And then with respect to the complexity, we're talking about aircraft that are going to be routinely taking off and landing in cities, on city streets, on businesses, in backyards of residential properties and so forth. And the existing air traffic control system is clearly not built to support that. Air traffic control today is very, very good at managing aircraft flying at 30,000 feet, assuring that they don't collide with one another, making sure that they don't collide with one another on runways. But when we're talking about vehicles that are flying at low altitudes in proximity to businesses and homes that have to take account of privacy, the nuisance, security, and other aspects, we need a new set of software tools to handle that, and that's precisely what unmanned aircraft traffic management is designed to do.
Hello, there we go, we're back. Okay, so thank you very much for that, Ben. It's interesting to understand not only some of the numbers and volume of these systems that are coming into the marketplace around the world, and how needful we are for the UTM solutions. So thank you again. I'll move over to Robert Roxburgh. Bob is the US Federal Aviation Administration Attaché and Senior Representative to the Middle East, also based in Abu Dhabi. I had a talk with Bob. Thanks to Bob for joining the panel. It was a late decision for him. So I had a quick meeting with Bob last week, and I realized that the little sparkle in Bob's eye when we started talking about some of the technologies that are coming into play with drones was because Bob was previously a software engineer for almost 2 decades with a number of smaller companies that you might have heard of, Lockheed Martin, Unisys, and a subsidiary of Northrop Grumman as well. So Bob, thank you again for joining us on the panel. And if you would mind giving us your perspective on ensuring secure airspace with respect to drones.
Thank you very much, Ken. Before I start my remarks, I would like to join the others on this panel and thank GACA for putting on this outstanding event. And in my 2.5 years in this region, this is the third outstanding event that GACA has hosted promoting civil aviation collaboration and safety around the world. So I have 4 or 5 things that I'd like to talk to in response to what you said, Ken. But before I take a deep dive into those, I want to share with everybody here how FAA categorizes drone operators. We call it the 4 C's. There are 4 types of drone operators that FAA, as FAA describes it. The first type is what we call the compliant operator. That operator knows the rules for UAS and drones and complies with them. The second type of operator is what we call the clueless operator. This individual doesn't know what the rules are, and because of their lack of knowledge, they may present a risk to civil aviation. The third type is called what we call the careless operator. They may know the rules, but they decide to push the envelope and perhaps skirt to the edge of violating those rules. And the last of the C's, of the 4 C's, is what we call the criminal operator. And they're using UAS for malicious intent. That said, there's 4 or 5 things that I'd like to mention regarding security of UAS in general aviation airspace. And the first one I wanted to mention was establishing rules, and that's the rule-making process. The FAA has formed what we call the Advanced Notice for Publication of Rulemaking. That's ANRPM. That's a process whereby FAA collaborates with industry and the public to establish rules for the safe operation and the integration and promotion of UAS in the U.S. national airspace system. And we have used this process in the past, collaborating with makers to, for example, on payload issues, distances, how far away they should operate, and a number of other subjects as well. But in particular, in draft right now, there's a rule that the FAA is working on called remote ID. And FAA is promoting remote ID for a couple reasons. One, it's the only way to operate in a UTM environment. And second, it's required for beyond line of sight operations. But the second aspect of that is security related. For example, if you have a civil aircraft now, a manned aircraft, and you see it flying or operating in an unsafe manner, you can look at the registration number, get the tail number, and obtain information about that aircraft very quickly. That, however, is not the situation today with drones. And remote ID, when it's implemented, would allow us some comfort. For example, if we saw a UAS operating, we could identify it and say, yeah, that's from Amazon, or that's from Union Pacific, and that would give us a level of comfort and security for how the drone is operating. Another thing we're working on is counter UAS programs and policies. We're working with federal, state, and local entities to ensure that there are security measures in place to mitigate any malicious use of drones. And the FAA's role here is to work with the interagency on the one hand, but on the other hand, we don't want to create security rules that may hazard safe operation of UAS. For example, we wouldn't want a counter-UAS system to jam airport ILS systems or radars, or likewise interfere with systems aboard aircraft. The next one that FAA is working on to integrate UAS safely and securely is something we call the LEAP program. That stands for Law Enforcement Assistance Program. It's been around a long time, a good 30 years perhaps, but what is new is the drone aspect. And for the LEAP program, FAA is reaching out to law enforcement at the state and local level and educating them on how drones operate, and also teaching them what to report so FAA can take enforcement action if needed. Next one I wanted to mention was Part 107, Part 107. The FAA has a process in place where we can grant waivers. Currently, the way Part 107 works, for the most part, is it has to be line of sight, it has to be daylight, and you can't operate over people. We are granting waivers to this, and we started out with, I think, 0 waivers, and now we're up to 30 as of February. And so the last one I wanted to mention was what we call LANCE-C. That stands for Low Altitude Authentication and Notification Capability. What we're aiming to do there is accelerate the process for authorizing drone operations. I can remember 2.5 years before I moved to this region, sitting in the UAS integration office, and somebody called in from California, wanted to fly a drone over a bridge, and explaining the process to that individual, it became obvious it would take weeks and it wouldn't be able to happen overnight. We do have a process in place now where it can happen in near real time. So those are the 5 things that we are doing right now, and all of those are aimed at pushing as many people as we can into that compliant category of the 4 C's. Thanks.
Thank you, Bob. Very detailed, and I had a few notes that I wanted to comment on, but I'm really going to keep moving here, and we're going to have an opportunity to come back to a couple of those in a minute, especially with the legal framework as an extension of the regulatory framework and being able to classify them to support industry to move forward as well. So thank you again, Bob. I'd like to move to Captain Tom Agenci. I'm sorry. Tom is the Director of Aviation Safety, Security and Regulation with the Kenyan Civil Aviation Authority. Captain Agenci previously flew as an airline pilot with the national carrier Kenya Airways. And I'd like to move to you, Tom, and thank you again for joining us this afternoon, and ask you to give us your perspective on the UTM environment from a regulatory perspective.
Thank you very much, Ken, for the introduction. And thank you, Gaka, for inviting us. And thank you for welcoming on this forum. I will talk from the regulatory framework or purely on regulatory certification of drones. Drones have created a lot of interest among young enthusiastic aviators and advertisers. It's also gone into business innovators and manufacturers who would like to make what we call unmanned aircraft systems to make a business out of it. But from our perspective in terms of CAs, we are very averse of the dangers that are associated with the UTM, the vehicles that could easily interfere with the mainstream air transport. We have to assess the risk, both in the air to avoid collision and also on the ground to avoid going into what we call installations which are of great interest or which are of great economic value, embassies and so many other installations. So for us, we have to get the risk assessment, we have to get the mitigation issues, then we have to have a robust registration process whereby we are able to collect data and to know exactly who is these UAVs. Because by so doing, then we are able to have a center or a central place for data collection. From there, we are able to do the categorization. We know what are their capabilities, what are they capable of doing, and how safe are they to fly low level within and near the controlled airspace, also on the approach paths. After that, we are able to identify them, doing make identification of these drones or UAS. Then how are we going to identify them? Are we going to use the transponders to be able to identify them? Then are we able to communicate with them? Are we going to be safe from other traffic if we cannot communicate with them? Then we have to get to the tracking of these in the sense that we need to have the training. We have to have the syllabus. We have to understand about the licensing. We have to understand about the insurance, the medical requirements. We have to understand who can be licensed. At what age can we get these people to fly these drones? Then how do we integrate rather than segregating them from the main air traffic management? How do we assimilate them? You are all aware that in the recent past, there have been incidents of really serious threats into mainstream aviation, like in Gatwick, Dubai, and also the attempted attack on the president of Venezuela. So detection and avoidance is key for the regulators, and as such, we need a robust infrastructure to be able to make us feel that indeed the traveling public is not endangered. That is what we are doing, especially in the Kenya. We have not gone fully into registration of these UAS in the sense that we have not promulgated our regulations, which will be able to emulate all this that I've said, such that these UAS are able to be allowed in the mainstream aviation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Tom. I think we're back. I'm going to shift back over to Ben again now and ask if you can tell us a little bit about your experience and some of the challenges working with the civil aviation authorities on developing UTM solutions. I know AirMap was a member of the Unmanned Aircraft Safety Team, or Aviation Safety Team, UAST, in the US, amongst other forums that are helping consolidate and work collaboratively to develop these solutions. So if you wouldn't mind, Ben.
Yeah, that's right. So, you know, we need to engage in a very robust fashion with civil aviation authorities and air navigation service providers around the world to help inform the regulations, because the regulations and the technologies that are enabling increased scale in the airspace have to go in lockstep. The regulations inform the technologies, and the technologies inform the regulations in terms of what's possible. And as Bob mentioned a moment ago, The key is to get drone operators into the system. Let's get them flying in a compliant fashion. There's no holding back the drone economy. Drones are already in the airspace. So unlike traditional aviation regulation, where we can take a long time to figure out how exactly we're going to do this, because no aircraft fly until the certification is there, the exact opposite is true here. The aircraft are flying in the absence of regulation, and the longer we wait, the less safe it becomes. So we see it's very important to stand side by side with regulators and figure this out. We do it in a few different ways. One is at the international level, supporting organizations like Icao, but also the Joint Authorities for Rulemaking on Unmanned Systems, or JARIS, where we've been supporting the automation of the Specific Operations Risk Assessment, or SORA, which is a framework that civil aviation authorities can use to consider the holistic risk and mitigations of a particular operation, rather than certifying a pilot and an aircraft and an operator in isolation. This is a framework to look at the entire risk and the entire mitigations and approve those operations, and we're automating that process. We're also working closely with standards groups such as ASTM, Uae, and research and development organizations like CESAR in Europe, NASA in the United States, and NEDO in Japan, to develop these UTM solutions side by side with the regulators. And then with specific countries, of course, we've engaged closely with the FAA in developing the low altitude authorization and notification capability that Bob mentioned. This system allows drone operators to obtain authorization to fly in controlled airspace in a matter of seconds, digitally, with very, very little interaction with air traffic control, so it reduces the workload. And in 2018, we provided authorizations for more than 45,000 drone flights in controlled airspace through our digital platform connected to the FAA. Another example is in Switzerland, where we worked closely with the Federal Office of Civil Aviation. We performed a demonstration in September of 2017 over Geneva, which was observed by officials from the European Commission and EASA, where we had multiple drones flying simultaneously connected to the Geneva Air Traffic Control Tower, so we could have an exchange of data about where the manned aircraft were flying, where the drones were flying. This has led to a development of what we call the Swiss U-Space Concept of Operations, or CONOPS, which has just been published last week. You can find it on the Federal Office of Civil Aviation's website. And it describes the robust implementation of the Swiss UTM, which goes live on July 1st this year nationwide in Switzerland. So these are some examples, but we're always eager to sit down with our colleagues and the regulators and the ANSPs to help develop both the regulatory and technology frameworks for each geography.
Thank you, Ben. It is interesting how many layers there actually are to getting this right, and the engagement and how critical it is. I want to just shift over, Dr. Sami, as an extension of that in the development and what considerations should be applied when differentiating between commercial and recreational drones, having known that you've recently gone through the implementation of Part 101, 107, and more recently now with the UAS opportunity to register.
Thank you, Ken. It's very simple. It's the risk management part of the difference between recreational and commercial. The commercial part inherently has more risk, because we need to know what type of operation, and this is changing every day. And there are new operations commercially that we need to look, the regulator need to look closer and see if there are more requirements needed to make sure that the airspace is safe and the whole operation is safe from start to end. Also the type and quality of the training of the pilots and their ability to communicate with the ATC if needed, and whenever other traffic also. However, recreational, they are restricted to some areas. It's easier, probably less dangerous than commercial operations. Still, there are requirements. Of course, there is some risk. However, the risk is easier to manage. So that's the biggest consideration. Rules are there, 107, 101, as you said, also 48 for registration and markings. However, the biggest concentration is the type of operation and the technology, which is also changing every day. An application of the new technology, it's headache for regulator, but we have to look at each and every operator separately. So that's
Thank you. The pace of the technology advancements is extremely difficult to keep up with. So thank you for that, Dr. Sami. It's much appreciated. One thing, though, to touch on the intent. So you're talking about with the commercial aspect being a little bit more difficult in the first instance to manage, and I think some of these systems now or solutions that are becoming available are, to complement the regulatory framework there, so that initial human instinct of seeing these operating or these systems operating as a threat, and having a level of understanding of who the owner is, what the intent is, what the operation is, where the operator is actually positioned, can help to mitigate that. And educate the general public as well at the same time. So I'll move to Captain Agenshi again, and if you could just explain for us some of the implications for airport safety from a regulator perspective. And again, I know there's a lot of attention at the moment with some recent events, and there's a number of them, Gatwick, Heathrow, Dublin, I believe, Dubai. There's many of them. So from a regulatory perspective, Tom, what are some of the implications there for airport safety?
Thank you. Thank you, Ken, once more. It is from the safety aspect and from the happenings that have taken place in the recent past, that actually, as you have noticed, that operations of the AUTMs in rural areas or remote areas doesn't really have as much security threats like it will have into the airports. Into the airports is very scary, especially when you're not able to determine or to detect and find out where these particular UAS are and what the intentions are. It needs an infrastructure whereby the airports have got to actually invest a lot to be able to detect. These particular drones, or UAS as we call them, what are their intentions? Where are they? Do they cause threats, or are they simply for recreational? And by so doing, the clutter that it will cause, because it's low, it's very difficult for the mainstream air traffic management to be able to identify which one is causing the threat and which is not. For example, in Kenya, we have 4 airports, and which are very close, less than 5 miles radius. The businesses that are to be carried out by these UAS into the main air traffic flow or the flight path into the main airport would like to get to deliver the most important things like passports, parcels that are needed urgently. But then how do we bring them in? And how do they crisscross the flight paths to be able to deliver these parcels or these, maybe you've forgotten a passport and you want to be dropped quickly at the airport or something like that, or medication, or you want to bring a sample in of some kind of maybe medical sample. We find that at the airports, especially right now, it is not easy to accommodate the many UAS that would like to fly into, because, as I said, detection, avoidance. At the same time, to be able to integrate them, their numbers, it is not that easy. So as such, as it were, in the immediate need now, it doesn't look visible that indeed will allow UASs to fly into the mainstream airport because of the danger of collision. At the same time, their flow is not able to be
رفع الاستعدادات الأمنية بكافة المطارات لمواجهة أي تهديدات أمنية، توحيد الإجراءات والتقنيات الأمنية بما يتناسب مع أنظمة ومعايير الأمن بالهيئة العامة للطيران المدني، ضمان توافق المتطلبات الأمنية مع معايير منظمة الطيران المدني الدولي Icao، جمع وتحليل المعلومات والبيانات المتوفرة بالنظام لتعزيز إجراءات أمن الطيران. مكونات النظام: نظام المراقبة التلفزيونية هو نظام يغطي 27 مطار وأكثر من 11,000 كاميرا ثابتة ومتحركة. نظام تحكم بالدخول والخروج لمناطق المطار بهدف ضمان التأكد من صلاحية الدخول لمناطق المطار حسب تصنيفها الأمني. نظام التصاريح الأمنية الموحد هو النظام المسؤول عن إصدار وإدارة البطاقات الأمنية لدخول المطارات في المملكة لكل من الأفراد، المركبات، المعدات، رخص القيادة. من مميزات النظام توحيد الإجراءات الأمنية، التحقق الأمني الإلكتروني، اختصار وقت إصدار التصريح من أيام إلى دقائق، إمكانية إيقاف التصريح في أي وقت لدواعي أمنية. نظام الإنذار والكشف المبكر، الرادارات، التجهيزات الأمنية المادية، أنظمة فحص الركاب والأمتعة وتحليلها، بوابات الكشف عن المعادن، أجهزة لتفتيش المركبات، البوابات الانزلاقية والمصدات المتحركة والثابتة. نظام تتبع الشحنات، وتهدف إلى تمكين بيئة آمنة للشحن الجوي بالمملكة والتميز في تقديم خدمات الشحن والتواصل مع العملاء، وتبسيط وأتمتة وتوحيد عمليات الشحن الجوي. خدمة تراخيص وكالات الشحن، تتبع الشحنات، خدمة التفتيش والمتابعة. المركز الوطني لأمن المطارات يهدف إلى توفير المعلومات وتحليلها، تقييماً للمخاطر ولمراقبة ومساندة إدارة الأزمات في المطارات وإدارتها على المستوى الوطني. ترتبط تلك الأنظمة الأمنية بقواعد بيانات مركز المعلومات الوطني من خلال نظام تحديد الهوية باستخدام خاصية التعرف على الوجه، ونظام تحديد الهوية بالبصمة، ونظام التحكم في دخول المركبات ومعرفة هويتها. وبهذا تسعى الهيئة العامة للطيران المدني إلى تحقيق مستوى أمني عالي لضمان حماية الطيران المدني.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mohammed Al Fawzan. And now to begin our panel discussion on emerging threats to aviation security and the potential solutions. I will start with Mr. Kashif Chowdhury, who is the Deputy Director for Aviation Security International Operations in the UK Department for Transport. He has over 20 years of experience in border security and intelligence, having held senior operational and policy positions with the UK Home Office and the Foreign and Commonwealth Office. Welcome, Mr. Kashif. Mr. Kashif, lately drones pose potentially severe threats to the civil aviation. What are the key threats to aviation security from drones? And what are some countermeasures that can help mitigate these threats?
Thank you, Hussein. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. That's a really key question, especially as it follows immediately after our session on drones and UAVs. I think we've known for a long time that terrorists seek to target aviation through new and innovative ways. And we know that terrorist groups aspire to weaponize the use of drones. As we heard in the earlier session, drones can also be incredibly beneficial, and they can actually save lives. And the challenge for us is how we regulate them in a way that encourages and promotes their lawful use and avoids their use as a weapon. In that context, from a UK perspective, we've done a lot of work. Many members of the audience will be familiar with recent incidents in the UK, and it's important to differentiate our experiences in the UK. We consider to be more criminal and careless and mischievous as opposed to terrorists. But the impact is still the same. We had, for example, at Gatwick, 800 flights delayed or cancelled, and over 150,000 passengers were disrupted. So it's really important that as government we take a proportionate approach that looks at legislative options. So, for example, we already have in place restrictions on where you can fly your drone, how high you can fly your drone. But alongside that, it's also important to have operational responses. And as we heard in the earlier session, there's any number of options for how you could neutralize a drone, but it's important that it is proportionate. If I may just to say, dwell briefly upon what Mr. Jobo presented in terms of the overall Icao risk context statement. And whilst clearly we are concerned about drones, it's important to put that in the context of the wider overall risk environment. And our primary concern remains improvised explosive devices and the terrorist attempts to try and blow up aircraft through concealing bombs. From a UK perspective, I'm really pleased that I lead our global network of aviation security liaison officers. In Saudi Arabia, we have Mohammed Ahmed posted to the British Embassy in Riyadh as our ASLO. And their role is very much to work with host states to develop that understanding of the threat and also consider what potential vulnerabilities are and then how we can work collectively to address those vulnerabilities. But I think hopefully with the support and working with Icao to help to deliver that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cash, for your highlight on this topics. I will move now to Mr. Zone. He is a mechanical engineer with a master's degree in business administration, in aviation and quality management. He has 18 years of extensive aviation experience in various fields. Presently, he is associated with the Mumbai International Airport Limited as the general manager and head of security and landside operations. Welcome, Mr. Zone.
Thank you.
Mr. Zone, a spate of tourist attacks on airports in recent years has focused attention on landside. We have a great example, the Brussels Airport. What is your perspective on emerging threats in landside security?
Thank you very much, Mr. Kabani. And I'm very much honored to be in Saudi Arabia.
You're very welcome.
And I must say, excellent hospitality by GACA. Coming to the point, we are from Mumbai International Airport. It's a public-private partnership airport run by GVK Group. We have 50 million passengers per annum. We are running this airport. And I must also say, the most constrained airport in the world is Mumbai Airport. We have single runway operation with a record of 1,000 flights in a day. Now coming to the landside security, 1.5 lakh passengers comes and goes from 2 terminals with around 50,000 vehicles coming into landside. So how to mitigate this risk? So in India, we have taken a proposal by the regulators that is called Counter-Terrorist Contingency Plan, done by our paramilitary force. In Mumbai itself, we have around 350 personnel deployed only to protect landside. So anyone coming into landside with a free access is restricted, and continuous monitoring and mitigational measures for that. That's how we taken care of our landside. Coming back to our emerging threats, we must have heard about a couple of definitions like suicide bomber, vehicle-borne IED, surface-to-air missiles. Now the new thing which we are getting reported is laser illumination, because pilots are reporting that when a laser is pointed on the aircraft, they just become slightly blind. It's very much risky. So how to mitigate these things are the upcoming threats to, or emerging threats to landside.
Thank you very much, Mr. Zone, for your explanation of the work that you have done in Mumbai Airport. Mr. Jibo, as we all know that cybersecurity is among the most important topics discussed in the aviation community, aviation security community. What is your perspective on cybersecurity and the emerging threats to aviation security, such as airports, airlines, ANSPs, and what is the Icao strategies in terms of countermeasures and regulation to combat this threat?
Thank you very much. You know, Icao strategy is the strategy of the member state. But what happened for those who attended last assembly, which was in September, October 2016, you realize that a draft resolution was proposed for adoption to the member state. For the first time, we have a resolution on cybersecurity. And that resolution was adopted because the member state secretariat, the expert, felt that it was mature enough to have a specific focus separated from the other issue linked to aviation security. And the instruction given to us to work during the triennium is first to be sure that under that perspective we take care of all the sectors of civilian aviation. The impact on safety, the impact on airport, on airlines, on air navigation services, the impact on telecommunication, because basically you know that from our perspective is any unlawful attempted act against civil aviation activity, maybe we can call it using the IT, what we call IT systems, being on equipment on board our aircraft, being equipment when the aircraft are maintained and repaired. That the whole chain, including the continuous now communication of the aircraft with the ground services. So for the first time, that resolution was adopted. Then what happened? In September 2017, then the Secretary General of Icao created a group that we call the Secretariat Study Group on Cybersecurity, which is an horizontal group in the Secretariat, listening to everybody, first thing, beginning by our colleague from the Legal Bureau, because of course we have strong legal and international implications, and also the regional offices, because we know that they are in charge of implementation, and our colleagues from the Air Navigation Bureau taking into account safety in air navigation. So that Secretariat Study Group is working on it and came with two proposals. One is to have a draft strategy on cybersecurity, and we are working on it with all the experts of the member state. And second thing is to create now a specific cybersecurity panel in Icao, building on all the interests that you have seen, being the drones, being all those things coming. So something is coming. We will report to you in a few months during the assembly in September, but we already have a draft strategy and it's almost agreed. Now we will go to the council and other bodies to say, formally, now we will have a panel on cyber security.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jibo. We all know that the technology plays a very important role in the aviation, so that's why we would like to focus on the cybersecurity in the maybe next assembly 2019 in September. Yeah. مرحبا مجددا أستاذ محمد الفوزان. شاهدنا جميعا الفيديو الخاص بالنظام الأمني المتكامل، ومثل هذه الأنظمة المتقدمة تحتاج إلى مشغلين. فما هو دور العنصر البشري في هذه المنظومة الأمنية؟
شكرا حسين. بالتأكيد دور العنصر البشري هو الدور الرئيسي والأساسي اللي بني عليها الأنظمة هذه. بعطي فكرة قبل وش يتفرد فيها المشروع الوطني المتكامل لأمن وحماية المطارات. أن عندك 27 مطار يكون أنظمتها موحدة، إجراءاتها موحدة، تستخدم البنية التحتية الأساسية موحدة. فهذا الموضوع هو الذي يعني يعطي لهذا المشروع تفرد. أضف إلى ذلك أن جميع هذه المطارات 27 مطار ترتبط بمركز وطني واحد موحد لإدارة العملية الأمنية والتدخل في حالة الطوارئ. فالفكرة من الزملاء اللي سبقونا وكانت بالنسبة لهم حلم، الحمد لله اليوم تتحقق ونبدأ في تنفيذ هذا المشروع، وبعض أجزاء بدأت بالفعل، وإن شاء الله زي ما ذكرنا في 2022 يتم الانتهاء من هذا المشروع بإذن الله تعالى. العنصر البشري فلسفتنا في هالمشروع هذا أنه يدير المشروع وليس هو المشغل فقط، بما كان في السابق أنه عندنا مشغلين. الأنظمة الحديثة تعتمد على الذكاء الاصطناعي وعلى كمية كبيرة وهائلة من المعلومات، تحتاج إلى بنية تحتية وسيرفرات ضخمة لتحليل وجمع هذه البيانات التي تساعد العنصر البشري. ولمواكبة هذا الشيء العنصر البشري لابد أن يكون متدرب، فسوف تنشأ بالتزامن مع هذا المشروع مركزين، مركز في الرياض ومركز في جدة، للتدريب على الأنظمة الأمنية الحديثة. ذكر أكثر من متحدث في هذا المؤتمر عن نسبة الشباب السعودي في من عدد السكان، شكل تقريبا 60%. الشباب السعودي قادر بإذن الله على مواكبة هذا التطور، على استخدام جميع التقنيات الحديثة وإدارة منظومة أمنية متكاملة للطيران المدني.
شكرا جزيلا أستاذ محمد على مداخلتك المفيدة لنا جميعا وإعطاء نظرة متكاملة عن النظام الأمني. I'll move now to Mr. Zone again. After the clarification that we have on the landside security in Mumbai airport, what are some of the innovations impacting landside security and passenger and baggage screening in Mumbai airports?
Not even Mumbai airport, I must say that hand baggage security check procedure has not been changed from last 20 years. If you see from last couple of years, we can see some automated tray retrieval systems, centralized cabin baggage screening, those kind of new kind of a concept coming to airports. So every touch point, wherever passenger comes for the security check, should be very smooth. So how to get the throughput, how to increase the throughput, how to minimize the procedures. So in India, we have a couple of manual procedures like stamping the boarding passes. We have eliminated such kind of procedures through digitalizing this kind of concept, but still not ensuring that the boarding passes and the passengers are correctly getting into the aircraft. So centralized cabin baggage screening, Mumbai airport is the first airport implemented in India. It's kind of a thing, you can see a screener sitting in front of the machine, wherein in Mumbai you cannot see that screener in front of the machine. Everyone is sitting behind the room and screening these baggages. Coming back to automated tray retrieval system, we have achieved 70% throughput increase from a manual or conventional method of screening. And even in Mumbai or in India, we have domestic passengers screening in a different place, international passenger screening in a different place. Now we are saying that that can also be integrated, which will reduce my cost of equipments, space, and the manpower.
Thanks again, Mr. Zone, for your clarification. Mr. Jibo, if you can please provide us with the innovation that the Icao that working on. We know that there is a working group on innovations. If you can add up on the landside security.
Thank you. I think this morning you heard the President of the Council.
Yes.
In his speech, he raised that issue of innovation. So, of course, innovation impacts all of us. As individuals, our consumers, every day we see things coming. We are not sure that we understand, but maybe our children better understand than us how it works, how fast they should apply. So, in aviation, of course, we have a challenge. And we see new actors in the sectors coming with new technologies. So for us, we see innovation with new technologies as a package impacting favorably the business, trade, travel. We have now flying taxis, we have suborbital air transport, we have supersonic. So a lot of things are coming and we are trying to address them. So talking about security, of course, for us is the impact on the aviation security systems, which is the primarily focus. How does it impact favorably? Travel document, for example, you see now are completely digitalized. We are talking about e-visas. maybe in some states today they are talking about no more passport, but a chip in your arm. This is how you will cross borders. Paper will disappear. It's something which is coming. And one specific concern, of course, is the new system for liquids and gels. You know how it's embarrassing today in certain airports, certain regions, liquid of gels. We have not yet, I think, successfully found a technology which will address that issue. So something is coming, primarily focus the impact on the security system. Then, of course, it has to be a discussion, horizontal discussion for all the civil aviation sectors. And the President, again, in his speech this morning, raised that proposal that before the Assembly in September, we will have an innovation event where each of us will come and with the industry to say, okay, this is the technology available, this is the perspective, what are our concerns? We saw the benefit of drones for agriculture, for medicine, for maintenance, but also, of course, the impact on security. And here again, we have our perspective, but in the framework of the United Nations, you know that they have adopted a resolution on protection of critical infrastructure, ports, nuclear plant, airports, facilities, and this is where came the issue of innovation, and it's something really that we are sharing, and we anticipate that we will continue to benefit from the expertise of the member states, of strong partners. We have state, airports, airlines. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jibo. We are very keen to see the new technology that is going to be applied in the various areas in the aviation security. And I'm personally very glad that we will be seeing paperless passports and other travel documents which will save our environment, inshallah. Mr. Cash, I believe that everyone is attending here is very interested in drones. Coming back to drones, what are the steps being taken by DFT to ensure incidents like Gatwick are avoided? And do you feel the international community can do more to aviation security?
Thank you. Thank you very much. So, referring back to the drones, picking up my earlier point, I think it's really important to consider legislative solutions as well as operational and tactical solutions. So, as I said, we already have restrictions in place. We're looking through amending the air navigation order to expand the area in which it's not permitted to fly drones. We're introducing a registration scheme, and we're also looking at new police powers. I think if I may just link into the conversation on industry, it's really important that we work with industry to find these solutions. There is no one silver bullet, but it's important that government and industry works together to consider what those solutions are. And if I just link that to our earlier reference from Dr. Jibba about technology and new technology and innovative new technology, a really important part of new technology is for us to consider what happens to the old technology. And I say that in the context of, we know that terrorists will attempt to conceal devices. We know that terrorists will obtain old devices, old X-ray machines, for example, old ETD machines, and try and use those to see if they can perfect their device in order to defeat the security we're putting in place. So when we talk about new technology, let's also consider how we will manage and discard safely for the old technology. Just if I may pick on briefly on your final point around what more can we do as the international community, and I think it's really important that we work with Icao and host states to see how we can raise the global standards on aviation security. When we talk about technology, we had a brilliant session about women in aviation. And it's really important, as was alluded to earlier by Mr. Al-Fawzan, people make the system work. It's not just about machines, it's about the people. And as I indicated, the UK undertakes a number of assessments overseas, and a key theme we identify in a number of locations globally is misbalance between male and female screeners. So it's a really good example of how we've got to ensure that we actually invest in the people, and alongside investing in the people, we need to consider the potential of the insider threat that goes with that. And I think that's a really good example where we can work with Icao to try and keep a focus for the Assembly in 2019 very much on aviation security alongside the other key themes. And a key element of that is how we can manage that insider threat with 100% staff screening, robust background checks, and try working with Icao to create a global standard that we can all look to implement.
Thank you, Mr. Cash. I think you have mentioned a very important word in your answer, which is cooperations. In aviation security, everything has to go through cooperation between the states, between industries, between even locally between the security agencies. So aviation security, it's all about teamwork. Everyone is completing other entity work. And this is what we are looking forward from the international community as well. We'll go back to Mr. Zone. What are the key learnings from the security management at Mumbai Airport that can be applied elsewhere?
As clearly mentioned, communication, coordination, like in Mumbai, we have 49 international airlines, 8 domestic airlines, 60,000 employees, 4,000 security personnel. Managing this itself, coordination is the key, which will result in every aviation function.
Thank you very much, Mr. Zon. Mr. Boubacar, how can technology be used to improve security operations?
As you are aware, we need technology. We are using technology for the screening, as we are saying, and in the different form of screening, passengers, cargo, screening equipment with the issue of PED. So something exists, and we even put on the website of Icao what we call the AFSECpedia, a kind of repository of the technology available working for aviation security. Now, what can we do? We follow the incidents linked to the PED. We know what is happening. Now we see how, not talking only about Gatwick, but some drones over some nuclear plant in certain states. So it's a generic assessment that a lot of things are coming. We don't know exactly how it works. Young people or brilliant IT people are dealing with things we cannot even imagine. And in addition, they are not even aware of the civil aviation regulation, and sometimes they don't even care. And this is the challenge as we have. First is an issue of understanding what is happening on the ground. Now to try to bring those people to talk to us, because when you deal with a taxi and you decide that taxi will fly, you need to understand it will impact us immediately because now the taxi is flying. So this is the kind of challenge that we have. And I think for the moment, each of us are trying to assess through bad examples, through good examples, and you listen to the airport, to the state, and we will try, this is the year of the assembly, it's each 3 years. This year we'll try to come to you and to listen, to know which guidance are you giving us based on experience, on what happened on the field. We know we need to do better, but I think we are still on the listening, on the learning mode. We know what we don't want on the other side because there's a border not to cross regarding security. But in between, how do we move to have the majority of the industry not being impacted by those regulations, which should be even new, as in UK, for example, so some bills has to be changed. Here also we saw how Saudi Arabia has moved in building infrastructure, in putting in place the necessary regulation. So this is where we are, but technology is moving so fast that I think from now it will be very not easy for us to catch up. And this is why here again we need the expert of the member state, of the industry to sit with us to talk. We know what is coming, we don't know how, when, but it's going very fast.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jibo. Mr. Kashif, if you allow me to direct the same question for you, like for the DFT. How can the technology be used to improve the security operation from the DFT perspective, please?
Thank you, Sain. As I said, I think technology has a really key, important role to play, and that importance of working between government and industry to deliver new and innovative solutions is really important. As Mr. Jebo said, it's getting the balance right between security and facilitation. And it's ensuring that the security measures we put in place are proportionate to a real threat, but do allow the free movement of passengers. And in that context, we're very keen to work with industry. It's also really important, as you said earlier, about the international cooperation, because there's information that each state will hold based upon its experiences, be it sample sizes, be it trials, be it new equipment, and how we can combine that knowledge to try and identify better solutions that work. One size seldom fits all, so you may need individual solutions, but the principles should help to inform us by working collectively to deliver that.
Thank you very much for the clarifications on the DFT perspective on the technology and how it's being used to improve the security operations in the UK. أستاذ محمد الفوزان، من خلال ما تطرق له المتحدثين عن التهديدات الأمنية الناشئة في أمن الطيران المدني، كيف يمكن الاستفادة من النظام الأمني المتكامل في مواجهة مثل هذه التهديدات؟
طبعا لن تكون الإجابة بأن كل التهديدات الأمنية سوف يحلها النظام الشامل والنظام الأمن المتكامل. بالطبع هذه إجابة غير منطقية. لابد أن قبل التكنولوجي لابد أن يكون فيه تشريعات وإجراءات واضحة، لابد أن يكون فيه توعية، لابد أن يكون فيه التنسيق والتعاون أكد عليها أكثر من متحدث. المطارات يعمل فيها أكثر من جهة أمنية وحكومية. لم يكن هنالك تعاون وتنسيق لن تفيدك أي أنظمة وأي تكنولوجيا مهما كانت متقدمة وحديثة. نفتخر في المملكة بأن المستوى التنسيق بين الجهات الأمنية والعاملة في المطارات والجهات التشغيلية على مستوى متقدم وعالي جدا. فبالتالي التقنيات سوف تساعد على تنفيذ ما هو موجود من تشريعات. فلو تكلمنا عن الدرونز لابد أن يكون عندك تشريعات، لابد يكون عندك توعية، بعد ذلك تضع أنظمة حماية مضادة للدرونز. كذلك سايبر سيكوريتي، إذا تبني نظام ضخم يكلف ملايين الدولارات لابد أن يكون فيه نظام أمني وسايبر سيكوريتي محكم، ولابد يكون إجراءات الأمنية قوية، ولابد يكون عند العاملين وعي كامل باستخدام هذه التكنولوجيا. كذلك ممكن تتوفر في وراح تتوفر في المشروع الوطني المتكامل التعرف على الوجه والتعرف على العربات والمسجل منها مبلغ عنه ومفقود أو تشكل خطر على المطار، بوضع كاميرات في كل أنحاء المطار. ولكن في عدم وجود تنسيق وتعاون بين الجهات الأمنية لن تستطيع على التنسيق والحصول على المعلومة والتعامل مع أي ظرف طارئ. فألخص الكلمة بأن التكنولوجيا واستخدامها جدا راح يفيد في رفع مستوى الإجراءات الأمنية، لكن تبقى التشريعات، تبقى التنسيق بين الجهات العاملة في المطارات عوامل مهمة جدا تكتمل فيها المنظومة الأمنية.
شكرا جزيلا أستاذ محمد الفوزان. I will open the floor for the audience if they have any questions to our panelists here, so they can ask him directly. Yes, please. The mic, please.
Thanks very much. My name is Barry Kashambo. I'm the Icao Regional Director for the Nairobi office. I have two questions. One is directed to my colleague, Mr. Baka Jibo, and the second one is directed to my dear friend, Mr. Shodray. let me start with Chaudhry. The issue you talked about, the approach you have with the UK government on enhancing aviation security globally. Maybe could you highlight to us some of the programs that you have at regional levels to which we could benefit as part of your processes? And the same, in the same vein, I wanted to ask if Mr. Jibo could also highlight to us the continental programs that could be there in place that are targeted towards enhancing aviation security and facilitation. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kashif, please.
Thank you very much, Barry, for that very challenging question. so, in the context of the UK Overseas Aviation Security Programme, as I indicated, we have a global assessment programme with teams of aviation security liaison officers who work with host states to review the security provision for flights to the UK. So our focus is on last points of departure for flights originating at host countries travelling to the UK. As part of that programme, we review the security in place together with the host state, and we then present our findings and have discussions with the host state on potential vulnerabilities and what we can then do to assist to help to address those vulnerabilities. And we have a comprehensive capacity development programme which could range from training in country, hosting training into the UK. We invite foreign delegations to come and visit us in the UK. We provide equipment, for example, explosive trace detection, and other regional events to help to develop host state capabilities. But a really important factor for us is it's about how we can work collectively to raise global standards. So whilst our focus is on last points of departure to the UK, our understanding is we can work with host states, and many host states look to see how they can implement that more widely across the airport to protect all aviation from points of origin. And clearly a key part of that is the work we can do with regional Icao offices to improve standards globally. And that sort of work between states and Icao on capacity development is absolutely key.
Thank you, Mr. Kashif. Mr. Rajiv, if you go ahead, please, and answer the questions.
Yeah, thank you, Barry. So our initial mandate and duty is to ensure that everybody has the same understanding. And I think this is why we are proud. Last year, we adopted the Global Aviation Security Plan. And as you have seen, we have updated the global risk context statement. So for us, this is the basis. Everybody is aware of how far we should be involved under that perspective, and also how practically we should address certain specificities with high, low, or medium risk. So that one is available. Now, of course, in Icao, we deal with passengers crossing border, good crossing border. So it's important to have in mind, and this is why a regional approach is, for us, of course, even better than a bilateral approach, because people, aircraft, goods fly over the world. And it's fundamental that we back our mandate on the political or the economic organization, which have already free movement, free trade area. So for us, this is how we see it. The regional approach is mandatory. The regional approach backed by certain type of organization, being political, economical, or linked to common vision, common approach, is also for us a facilitator, because those states have already agreed to work together. Now, of course, we have regional plans. We were here 3 years before. We adopted the Riyadh Declaration. Then we went to Cairo. We adopted the AFI-MID Declaration. What is important is the consistency. And of course, backed by the member state assessing certain procedures, certain airport due to the traffic. Here also you have seen the map on the traffic. We are working on risk-based. And the beauty of the regulation under aviation security is that they are on result-based. This is how, for us, we encourage, we supplement, we support. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jibo. I have only 1 minute, okay? Please. He has the mic.
Yeah, I have a question. My question is directed to the gentleman from UK, Mr. Zon, if I'm not mistaken.
Mr. Kashif Chowdhury?
Yeah.
Yes.
My name is Abdurrahman Al-Amri. I'm from the Unmanned Aircraft Systems, GACA department that takes care pretty much of all drones, matters in Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. We all witnessed the tragical event, took place in Gatwick Airport, and causing, shutting down the whole operation for the airport for 2 days. I'm just, would like to know what were the lessons learned, after this event, and the corrective actions were put in place after, Thank you.
Mr. Cash, I think you have answered this question, but if you just summarize it, please, for him very quickly. We have no time, please.
Sure. Very happy to speak afterwards. I think the key part is to be clear on our understanding of what the risk is and what are the measures we need to put in place and how we can work across government, Ministry of Interior, Department for Transport, police, to find solutions. But very happy to pick it up separately.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Abdurrahman, for your questions. We have come to the conclusion of our session, the emerging threats to aviation security and the potential solutions. Our speakers have highlighted the importance of the aviation security, and I thank them for their great contributions to the aviation security community. Also, I thank you, for our audience, for your great attention. Thank you very much, and I hope you have a good night here in Riyadh, inshallah.
Thank you.
شكرا جزيلا لمدير الجلسة والمتحدثين. بهذا أيها الإخوة والأخوات الكرام نأتي لختام هذا اليوم. نلقاكم غدا بإذن تعالى الساعة 9 صباحا. نأمل منكم ممن حصل على جهاز الترجمة إعادته إلى نقطة التوزيع. Thank you. With this we conclude the first day, and we hope to see you tomorrow at 9 a.m. for the first session tomorrow and the 5th in this summit. See you tomorrow. And if you have a simultaneous interpretation headset, please return it to the distribution point or keep it on the chair. Thank you very much.